Atheists are continually asked by believers how the world could be so complex and not have a designer. Well, there's a whole, long, beautiful story that science has discovered that explains how, in a step-by-step fashion, starting with the coalescence of the planet some 4 billion years ago, moving through the origins of life about 3.5 billion years ago, and tracing evolution through natural selection, we got all the way up to beautifully designed things like Natalie Portman. What is hard to explain and understand is God. God is way, way, way more complicated and complex than anything science postulates. Consider, God is omniscient. He knows everything. Let's think about what that means. God knows the position, speed, and vector of every single subatomic particle in the universe from the Big Bang 14 billion years ago on through to the end of time. To get a rough measure of the amount of information that God has to keep track of, we'd multiply the number of data points needed to describe the state of a subatomic particle at an instant by the number of particles, and multiply that by the number of instants in the life of the universe. We can't really simplify because of quantum indeterminacy. Right now, the minimum estimate of particles in the universe is 10 to the 72nd power, and the maximum is 10 to the 87th power. The shortest time span is considered to be the Planck time, which is about 5.4 times 10 to the negative 44th power. The universe is about 14 billion years old and is expected to continue in its recognizable form for a minimum of another 33 billion years, although many project a much longer time than that. To make things easier for God, we are going to assume minimums and suppose that all the relevant information about a particle can be given in one number. This gives us something in the neighborhood of 10 to the 128th power facts that God has to keep track of. To get a true measure, we'd have to multiply that unimaginable number by the actual amount of information required to fully describe a subatomic particle during a Planck interval. But again, let's cut God a break. Moreover, God has to know a lot of other things. For example, that certain configurations of particles make certain atoms and molecules, and how they interact, and how the patterns they make form everyday objects, and how all the billions of cells in every human brain act to create every thought, idea, perception, and feeling every human being has ever had, plus the experiences of all other animals, and so on. It's pretty much impossible to quantify this, but it must be equally staggering. Now, just think of the storage capacity needed for all this information. If one could store one fact in a particle of the universe, God would need a quote-unquote brain with a number of particles equivalent to that of 10 to the 55th power universes to store just the basic information about subatomic particles. Should we say that he would need double that amount to include everything else? But that's not all. Here's the real killer. God, the creator, obviously had to choose which possible universe to create, out of all the logically possible universes. After all, he wouldn't be God if he just created any crappy old universe. He must have considered all the alternatives in detail, and so he must have this same unimaginably detailed and complete knowledge, not just of the universe he made, but of all, and the number is literally infinite, of the universes he didn't make. We are, of course, well into the transfinite numbers now. But we're still not done. We also need God to be able to think about all this, and so, well, think of the processing capacity that would be needed. Unimaginable. Also, God is supposed to be able to do all this without a brain or any physical organ. Let that sink in for a minute. Now, okay, God is supernatural. He's magic. But can anyone think that this is a simple explanation? A plausible alternative to the scientific account? And God's information storage and processing requirements are not the only problem with God's mind. We have not addressed the puzzling question of where God's ideas came from. Traditionally, in epistemology, two sources for ideas are given. Ideas are either innate or acquired through experience. Now, surely God needed ideas to think about the universe he was going to create. But where did they come from? To say that his ideas were innate is no answer at all. But neither is it plausible to suggest that he acquired them from experience. What experience could he have before there was a universe to experience? As a simple example, God presumably knows what the color blue looks like, even though he lacks eyes and a visual cortex and so on. So where did he get this knowledge before he had created anything blue to look at? So believers think that atheists have a problem explaining the beautiful things on earth. The believers have a much, much bigger problem. Explaining beautiful things on earth is a snap, a walk in the park, compared to explaining God.